Well, it's a good time to be a New York sports fan. The Giants and Jets drafted well. The Rangers are in the playoffs, and figures I get decked out in Rangers gear as a casual hockey fan, and they fucking lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins in triple overtime. Not necessarily for the Islanders, because I don't think the Islanders are in the playoffs. Once again, casual fan.
They might be. They might be they might be one of the lower seeds.
Okay, well, fuck the Islanders, right? Basketball, obviously, the Nets made the playoffs, but then they, we all know how that happened. The Mets are winning games, but fuck the Mets. They keep chanting Yankees suck. At least their fan bases, they keep chanting Yankees suck at their stadium. Meanwhile, we didn't do anything to them. But the main focus is that the Yankees are on an 11-game winning streak. Am I correct with that number?
Yes.
11-game winning streak. And we're going to be really positive on this episode. And we like to be positive. But after all, welcome to another episode of the Twinbill podcast brought to you by NyynewsTV. I'll get the bookkeeping stuff out of the way. Then we'll go to Luca. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when Pete drops a live, game season, stuff like that, live episodes. I think next week or the week after, we might start doing some live episodes earlier in the day because we don't have school and shit like that. But that's going to be exciting. And NyynewsTV Day, that's going to be very exciting as well. That's a month away. So purchase your tickets if you haven't already. Purchase some merch. Help us out. Help out the other podcasts. And also give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We're going to get all the links in there and stuff like that. But Luca, obviously, you're a Jet fan, but this is, of course, a Yankees podcast. How do you feel about how the Yankees are playing as we're going to get right into it?
It's great. It's always good to be riding an 11-game win streak. It's always good to be the best team in the American League. I think we're like 18-6 possibly through the first 24 games. Alex, you can back me up with the stats, but it's great to be in first place. It's great to be best in the American League East. And that argument that we didn't beat good teams has pretty much gone away since we just taken 2 from the Toronto Blue Jays. And that's a problem we had early on last year, Alex. We could not beat the bad teams, and I think we're doing a better job of it now since we lost the series to the Orioles. We've swept the Cleveland Indians. We swept the Orioles at home. We swept the Royals on the road, and now we've just taken 2 out of 3 with the Blue Jays. Maybe they go for another sweep. So they're really riding the hot. You know what I like, Alex? Starting pitching is obviously doing well. Bullpen, I think, is a little shaky. Chapman and Weisiger, but it's not all home run or nothing, I'll be honest. They're diversifying their runs. They're hitting sacrifice flies. You're seeing Timmy LaCastro, Aaron Judge stealing bases. Situational hitting from Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and DJ LeMahieu. All of that good stuff. So I really like what this Yankee team's turned into. Let's keep it up.
Booty ball. It's not booty ball. But yeah, I have to agree with you. I'll bring up a point in a second. But it's more than the home run ball, and we're going to talk about Aaron Judge because, man, oh, man, I have some shit to air out, and, some people ain't going to like it, but I could give 2 fucks. Stanton's balling out. Gleyber Torres is starting to hit the ball real nicely the last 2 days. Obviously, we'll mention the Joey Gallo thing, but they're taking advantage. In this past game, they took advantage in that 7th inning. Marwin Gonzalez should have been called out. Because A, he was tagged, 2, he was out of the baseline, but they took advantage. This guy getting an RBI hit, this guy getting an RBI hit, so on and so forth. They're taking advantage of these situations. And once again, you said it's against good teams. And obviously we had that big win streak last year in August. It happened to be when we were away. But, now that we could commentate on it and just give our thoughts and stuff like that, whatever, that possibly may have led to a burnout at the end of the season where we were still fighting for that playoff spot, whatever. But, being that comparison to last year, the Yankees were not in this type of mode. Like they were just non-energetic. They weren't winning too many games. They were losing to some really bad teams. And we, have done that so far. Like, that Orioles series is won. We did lose to the Tigers in the last game, but ever since then, it's been really flawless. And I really like the way they've started. And, once again, win streaks come and go. Losing streaks come and go. But you start hot, you don't procrastinate. You're winning to the second half of the season, which could burn you in the playoffs. But overall, I really like what this Yankee team is doing. Obviously, we'll talk about different impact players, and I think it's just great overall what they're doing. And they're beating some good teams. Remember, early on in the season, I was praising the Blue Jays, and right now I believe they're 3 or 3.5 games back from us, and we're the best team in the MLB right now. You cannot go wrong with that. So, Luca, if you want to lead us into our first subject.
So our first topic will be, what has the starting pitching look like? They've looked pretty damn good, Alex. Previous to the season, prior to the season, we were questioning the starting pitching. Nestor Cortez is not really a guy who can give you a lot of innings. He's that spot starter guy. He's best as a long guy in the bullpen. Severino coming back from injury. Will Garrett Cole be that ace? Jordan Montgomery is still reliable. Jameson Taillon's still reliable. Will Taillon get hurt? I don't think the starting pitching has been a problem. Again, I'm saying this again, but it just continues to manifest itself. Severino really had his first hiccup start against the Kansas City Royals, but it wasn't too much of a hiccup compared, to his other starts. I think he gave up like 3 or 4 runs. That's it. Through like 5 or 6 innings, and the Yankees offense came back against the Royals. They were, what's the word I'm looking for? They were resilient. Jordan Montgomery's pitched well. Garrett Cole's pitched well. He's pitched well as an ace. He's doing his job against teams like the Royals. Shut him out. Nestor Cortez continues to be excellent for his role. Jameson Taillon, doing his thing. So the starting pitching has really looked up. So now I have a couple of splits. The Yankees are second in team ERA with 2.62, only behind the Los Angeles Dodgers for first. Right behind them is the New York Mets. They've struck out 8. So now for strikeouts, the Yankees are tied for 4th place. They've struck out 223 batters. Their opposing batting average stands right now at they're in 9th place. They stand approximately at 223. Team walks plus hits per inning, they currently stand 8th, so 1.16. Now, we could go on the StatCast and all this other stuff, but it seems through like the basic stuff, they're pretty much top 10 in terms of pitching. Every pitching stat, top 10, as I just mentioned. So they've done a really nice job. What are your thoughts on starting pitching?
I was thinking, as one of the first things that came up in my mind about the starting pitching, is that hiccup Sevy had this past Sunday against the Kansas City Royals. And you could make, a mention, the Royals aren't that good of a team and whatnot. And, I know a lot of people will be surprised, but I'm going to put a positive spin on this. Sevy has been just straight up fucking dominant prior to his hiccup. So you're due for one every couple of starts. And what makes it even better is that the resiliency, the Yankees coming back, because guess what? Just based off of last year and the last few years, but really last year, they owe it to the starting pitching, to where the starting pitching gives up 3-4 runs, whether it's against a good team or bad team or whatever. And, they come back. That's what they didn't do last year. That's what they're doing this year. And, obviously just displayed this past game against the Blue Jays. It was a run given up by Taillon in the bottom of the 6th, I believe. Aaron Judge to left field. Obviously, we all know what happened with the fan. The Blue Jays fan gave the Yankees fan a ball that was very good. That was very heartwarming of him. And then that inning, obviously, once again, we talk about taking advantage of stuff like that. And I don't think it was just, on Sunday, I don't think it was just, Sevy, he had an off start. I think there was a lot of things in there that were errors. If I'm correctly, I think Donaldson had a throwing error, and there was a couple of things that mixed in with that. However, once again, it matters that the Yankees came back and won that game. I just love what I'm seeing out of the starting rotation. Bullpen is a subject. I mean, once again, Clay Holmes has been getting better. He's trying to find his groove in there. Obviously, Ron Marinaccio was sent down, and I just don't think he was ready yet. He was giving up runs in games, and I'm not actually, and I'm not going to make too much of a big tangent about this. I'm not, excuse me for mumbling and jumbling, but I'm not going to blame the Yankees for putting him in those type of positions. In those positions as a major league reliever in games that are like 10-0, 10-2, 10-3, those are really, those go on.
They start off easy.
You start off easy. It's a warm up kind of thing. Then you start going into these situations of okay,
One
well,
run
you know,
ball games.
you're closer ball games, and you know, I just found it a little weird. And once again, Marinaccio's in AAA, and you know, he does need the time down there. Hopefully, we see him in a few weeks because we're actually going to see him in a few. Well, not really a few weeks, few days. Um, but with that being said, you know that second game against Boston and where Sevy was taken out, they put Marinaccio in. He did excellent. You know, he struggled a little bit, found his groove, started striking out guys, and then the Cleveland Guardians game, that third game, he gave up a couple of runs there, and then I'm missing one. I think it was the Orioles game. Was it or was it not?
The game where he gave up a couple of runs. I thought it was the Indians game, Marinaccio.
No, there was two separate games. There was one
It
game.
could have been the Orioles.
Okay, because it was like 10-2.
Yeah,
then,
it was against the Orioles. It was the final game. It was the
right,
game.
right. So hope Marinaccio comes back up and you know he really finds a groove when he comes back up. With that being said, once again, just love what the starters are doing. I kind of would, and this is me being an old school guy. I know I'm going to get ripped for it, but I would like to see them go just a little bit longer. You know, it's May. It's not first week of April anymore. Like you see, Tyen, they went to Peralta right after. I think it was the game before that. Who started before Tyen? I think it was Monty. I thought he was moving and grooving through his start, and he only pitched 5 innings, 65 or 70 pitches right there. And you know, I mean, I don't want to be negative, but that's just let your starter go a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there was a big use of this bullpen last year. There was a big use of this bullpen at the beginning of the season. Let your starters pitch. Let your starters get into that groove so you don't have to use the bullpen as much. They could come into games when the pitcher is tired, and then you don't have to worry about anything from there. And I think the bullpen uses just a little bit. And once again, you know, this is not trying to be too negative or any stuff like that. But I will always try to find a way to critique what the front office does because that's the analytics department, whatever. Just be a little bit smarter with some of the guys. And Chad Green, he lucked out. You know, he pitched very well. It was a 1-2-3 inning against the Blue Jays a few days ago. And once again, just be weary because late in games, Chad Green is a guy that can give up homers. Aroldis Chapman, it's a weird situation with him because you never know when he's going to be great. You never know when he's going to pitch like shit. So just be weary of that. And I mentioned Clay Holmes. Michael King has been an absolute fucking beast of a reliever. Shots to him. Do not do anything bad to him. Do not insert him in that starting rotation. Do not overuse him, but use him just the way you have been using him, for a lack of better words. And he's been a real piece for this New York Yankees ball club in that bullpen. Luca, if you want to carry on with your response.
Yeah, definitely. I think one worry of mine is this bullpen might get
Loizaga too.
Yeah, Loizaga kind of struggled a little bit. I think he had a bounce back performance against the Jays. I think it was in game 1. But one thing that worries me that goes along with your point of Alex of overusing the bullpen, you don't want them. You do not want the bullpen flamed out by July. That's something you want to avoid, especially when you need to win the important games down the home stretch. So that's one worry for me. Chapman, you obviously mentioned he's pretty much about a box of chocolates. You have no idea what you're going to get. So, yeah, I think that pretty sums up the bullpen and the pitching pretty well.
Agree with you there. Now, I put this down in our notes because I'm not really a guy on Twitter or just at all that says, okay, you know, look at me. I'm right. I don't want to be like that. You know, that's just searching for likes and the retweets and all that stuff. And to be honest, I don't get a lot of engagement. And you know what? When I get engagement, I get engagement. But don't these, and I'm going to curse a little bit here because I can, don't these motherfuckers who quit on Aaron Judge because he was asking for too much money, don't they look fucking stupid right now? I mean, seriously. You know, opening day, I had somebody behind me tell me, oh, well, they're giving him, more than enough money to live with in that deal. Let me say something right now. And somebody covered this in a tweet, and I responded with what I'm about to say. What was it, 230 that they were offering him?
Yeah.
230 was never fucking enough. 230 will never be enough for the franchise player and for what Aaron Judge is giving you. And let's take a look at the splits. I know this tells a portion of the story. Also, in that final game against the Kansas City Royals, 2 home runs. So, once again.
Alex, forgot to mention, that's his second multi-home run game of the season.
Correct. And how many other players on this roster? And there has been good contributors, like, Stan's been good. Rizzo's been good. Late. LeMahieu's trying to get back to his form.
LeMahieu's been you can summarize LeMahieu as timely hitting. That's all you have to say. He's a timely hitter.
Right. And just overall with Judge, I'll read the splits in a second. So in the last 7 games, 32 ABs, 12 hits, 9 runs, 6 homers, 14 RBIs, 13 strikeouts, no walks, a stolen base, 375 batting average. If you guys like OBP, 375, slugging, 969, I don't have OPS for you. I don't really pay attention to OPS, but in the stats that I, just screenshotted, it didn't cover. But I have always said this about certain power hitters. I've said it about Freddie Freeman. I've said it about Salvi Perez, who hit like 45-ish home runs last year, whatever. If you hit for average, I'm not going to give 2 shits about your strikeouts. I mean, we've gotten to that point in baseball where there's a shit ton of guys striking out. But with Judge, he's got good at-bats, and he will have those at-bats. Like, I think he had one against Manoah earlier today where he was swinging at a slider he had no business swinging at. Like, those are the pitches that get him. So I think there he needs to be a little bit more disciplined at the plate, and sometimes he will get overpowered by a fastball. But just overall, his performance has been very good this far, and especially in this winning streak. He's been extremely productive. The last 15 games, 60 ABs, 13 runs, 19 hits, 8 home runs, 18 RBIs, 5 walks, 21 strikeouts, and, of course, the 1 stolen base, 317 batting average, 369 OBP, and a 767 slugging. Also to note, I just want to take a look at his batting average up to date, because I don't want to give any false information, obviously, with the home run and all the other stuff in there. So Aaron Judge on the season is hitting 303 with an OPS of 1.035. He struck out 3 times, but also had 3 RBIs, 2 hits, 1 run. And Luca, what do you have to say about Aaron Judge and basically the people that were quitting on him early on in the season?
I don't care about the people that quit on him. It's about what Judge proved to me. And, obviously he wasn't paid the contract, but it is what it is. And and we're now seeing the real side of Aaron Judge. People were like, he's not doing enough to satisfy, the demands of his contract, or his demands for the contract extension early on. And he's gotten hot. He's hitting home runs. He's, doing smart things at the plate. He's getting base hits. He's not just home run or bust. He's getting extra base hits, singles, doubles, all that. He's doing what he can for this contract.
I agree absolutely. And let me ask you a question here, and I'm going to ask you based on what you would do and also based on reality. And it's also interesting to say at this point because he's on a hot streak, and we all know the arbitration hearings are happening in season because of the work stoppage that occurred earlier. When is the time to extend him? And when do you think the Yankees will get it done? Do you think it's going to happen at a high stock where they say, okay, you're on this hitting streak, you're doing well for the team, we're going to sign you an extension? Or is it going to be he struggles a little bit or gets to the middle point, he cools down, and then they sign him to an extension? When do you think it will happen? Do you think it's going to happen in season? Just give your thoughts on that.
I realistically think it will happen at the end of the season. The Yankees will panic because that's how I see it. I realistically would do it maybe during or after the All-Star break.
I tend to agree with you. I tend to agree with you there. I mean, I was thinking, maybe now, but also they have to get this arbitration sorted out. So it's a weird situation that we could complain 7 times, out of 7, the Yankees should have got this done, whatever. We're not going to do that. We're instead going to take the positive route because we're in season and Aaron Judge is proving his worth. So once again, he's proving everybody wrong, and I just love to see it. The next player we're going to cover is a player that the Yankees could have traded this offseason. They could have traded him in spring training as well because he had a really hot spring training. But with that being said, he's a player coming into the season because of those circumstances that needed to have a bounce back season. 2 years at shortstop, didn't work out. His offensive numbers have sunk. But the next player is Gleyber Torres. And I was getting a little excited with him to start the season. I'm like, look, it's spring training. It's just like Higgy, right? Higgy hasn't produced for us. And Jose Trevino is on like an 0 for 20, 0 for 21 streak right now. So you can't really decipher who is, the starting catcher. Maybe we'll get into that as well. But right now, how do you feel about Gleyber Torres? I mean, this past game, he was, I believe, 0 for 4 with the strikeout. But before, all of the runs came off of his bat, whether it was a homer or I believe it was a single or a double that ended up busting the game open to 3-2, and the Yankees obviously won. So your thoughts on Gleyber Torres?
I think it was a Gleyber single that broke the game open in the first game against the Jays. But for me, he's been pretty Jekyll and Hyde. Like there are games like he's doing his thing. He's all happy. He's getting good at bats. And then there have been some games which I think have taken the most part of the season where he's just completely lost to the plate, no plate discipline, and he's just down on his luck. Body language ain't too good either. So he's been pretty Jekyll and Hyde for me. I've not really gotten a clear stance on him. So he's going to have to prove a lot more to me.
I agree with you there. And just to read off some stats quickly, Gleyber Torres is hitting .225 this season with a total of 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 71 ABs, 4 runs, 16 hits, an OPS of 683, an on-base percentage of 260 in the last 7 games, 27 ABs, 3 runs, 6 hits, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, 4 strikeouts, which actually isn't bad. Those strikeout numbers are considerably low for him. 222 batting average, though, 214 on-base percentage, and slugging of 519 in the last 15 games. To get a bigger sample size, 51 at-bats, 3 runs, 11 hits, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, 216 average, 241 on-base percentage, and 392 slugging. So in your personal view with Gleyber Torres, and then I'll respond with my response, do you want him, and I think I know the answer to this, but do you want him to be that power hitter he once was and try to be with the rest of the Yankees like Judge and stuff like that? Or do you want him just to be a solid hitter that hits for average, maybe like a contact hitter? Like, what are you expecting? If you're expecting anything, what do you want out of him if it's got to be a positive thing?
I'll be honest, this might stun you a little bit. I want him to be like the rest of the guys. I'll tell you why. When he was at his best in 2019, I think he crushed like 36 homers or something.
38, I think was the number, but
that's when he was at his best, and that's when he was playing like out of his mind. I want him to go back to that. Focus on hitting the ball hard, extra base hits, homers, all that stuff. That's what I want him to go back to, not average approach where he's hitting 9 home runs last year. I mean, that's absurd.
Yeah, and that's a very good point you bring up, because obviously last year, once again, you got the very low production, and then the year before that, or actually 2 years before that, you get the 38 home runs and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting, even though we've seen players basically come off the bench or either rotate with different players in the lineup, like for instance LeMahieu and Torres are splitting time at second. Is he going to be able to stick on to the hot streak and be able to crush as many homers or whatever the case may be? Like they rested LeMahieu, and I feel like for Gleyber Torres against Manoah and some of these other guys that they threw in a bunch of bullpen pitchers at the end of the game, especially that seventh inning, because that's when the Yankees busted it open. Simber, Merriweather, they brought another guy in as well. They were struggling, and I feel like I got to go back to that inning and actually remember what he did. But that's the time you got to say, listen, I know DJ LeMahieu is the top of the order hitter. He's the leadoff guy. He's a solid hitter, and he is who he is. But I need to go out there and show the Yankees that I could be a power bat like the rest of this lineup. And I was talking before about possibly having Gleyber, and now they sent Andujar down. But I was talking before about having possibly Donaldson sit for a couple of games, LeMahieu over to third, Andujar is the DH, Gleyber at second, because if Gleyber can recapture some of the offensive production, the offensive fire he had a few years ago, and obviously that's a little bit of blind faith. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you also have LeMahieu, third base. He's versatile all around the infield. I know some are against him playing third. But also Andujar playing the DH when he was up here. That was, of course, my proposition. John Donaldson still can't really find a fucking, he's hot or cold. Sometimes he'll hit a home run. Next game, like you said about Torres, it's just going to be bad at bats. And, one swing. David Cohn was like, yeah, you got to swing now. I'm like, dude, that pitch was at his shoulders, not even close. So, I mean, Donaldson's frustrating me. I'm just going to put it that way. Donaldson's frustrating me, but I feel like they could have sent down a pitcher, depended on their starting pitching a little more, kept Andujar up. I feel like they did a little they treated him a little badly, for lack of better words, because he was hot and they didn't get him going in the starting lineup until the final game in Kansas City. But overall, with that being said, that's the way, in my opinion, you're going to get Gleyber going offensively, not this hot, cold bullshit of, oh, he's in the lineup, oh, he's not in the lineup. That's why I criticized the Yankees for coming into the season with the idea of, oh, Gleyber and LeMahieu. Now that Donaldson still can't get anything going, sit him for a few games, and I understand you're going to lose that defense, but LeMahieu, he's good at third, shortstop, Kiner Falefa, and at second, you have Torres and Decipher. What else? But I just think it all comes down to reps and not just, hot, cold, or the way the player is feeling and stuff like that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of people forget about Andujar. He doesn't strike out very often. He's very much a contact hard hitter. So I think that would be a good place in the Yankee lineup. Obviously, you mentioned Donaldson struggling. I think that's what I come to expect of him, really, since the Yankees traded for him. Kiner Falefa has been doing his thing of late. LeMahieu, as I said, is timely hitting. If timely hitting was ever a hitter, I mean, I'm not trying to be too original. Place Gleyber Torres at second base. He's done a nice job there. So if you keep him in the lineup consistently and at a good spot consistently, I think he could find his groove.
Now, even though he slipped a little bit, and then we're going to get into Joey Gallo and a few things as well to finish off the podcast episode, but even though he's slipping offensively, I mentioned his 0 for 20, 0 for 21 streak. Would you still keep Trevino in? Because he has done wonders with this pitching staff. I mean, I don't know if he started when Sevy was going on Sunday, but once again, with these stars like Tyon only gave up one run. We've mentioned the spots with Garrett Cole and stuff like that. So, even though he's not hitting offensively, which, time and time again, we do and don't expect that of Trevino, would you still keep him as the starting catcher?
I would honestly, for the reason you mentioned that, he's been good with the pitchers. He's gotten the most out of them. And he's a better defender. He's a better framer. So that's why I would keep Trevino as the catcher for the moment.
You want to take us into the next subject?
So Joey Gallo has been out for the past few games with a groin injury. Don't know how many games he's missed, but, the Yankees I shouldn't say are really missing his bat. Defense has been fine, which it's actually been really good for the Yankees the entire season. But you know what? in a way, I think this is a blessing in disguise. Not that I want Joey Gallo hurt, but you know what? His mind can relax. We don't have to see him twitching. No offense, but you know what? He's more relaxed. He can see how the Yankees are doing. It's all about relaxation for him, in my opinion. Getting him right.
Yeah, I'm not going to go ahead and say, oh, well, I wanted Gallo injured, this, and the other thing. But as you mentioned, he gets to relax. And I don't think he was going to get that the way the Yankees, as an organization, I'm not talking about players or this, that, and the other thing. The way the front office works the lineups, it's very inconsistent at times. And, they would say, okay, we're going to bench Joey Gallo. Just kidding. Next game, it's going to be Joey Gallo hitting 7th or 5th or whatever in the starting lineup. So blessing in disguise is a very discreet way of putting it. Once again, we don't hope Joey Gallo gets hurt. We hope he comes back to the best of his abilities. But this is a chance for Gallo to see, okay, they're beating up on these big teams. They're beating up against these smaller teams. I don't think he's going to come back and be this 330 hitter, but he's going to come back. And I think, once again, like you said, be more relaxed. I think he's going to take a little bit more pitches, not be so aggressive. Sometimes, yes, he does look at strike 3, and that's really pissed off. It really pisses me off because the way my coach taught me is, okay, you want to go up there, and if you're going to strike out, you strike out swinging, not looking. And some of the obvious stuff, he does strike out looking. But, yeah, I believe it is a blessing in disguise, not for rooting against Joey Gallo, but for Joey Gallo just to sit there and relax. And obviously, the Yankees have fluttered with Stanton in right field, and then in center field, they've had Hicks and sometimes Judge, and then left field would be, different players and stuff like that. Even though he's not the greatest hitter, I want to know your thoughts on the way Tim LeCastro has made an impact on the Yankees, especially in game 1 late against the Toronto Blue Jays.
I remember how the Yankees had pinch runners years ago. I think Terrence Gore was the guy's name we picked up from Kansas City.
Terrence Gore.
Some other names in the past. LeCastro has worked out really well. It's not much of his bat, but it's the speed kills still in this game. I remember, he's done it in very important situations as well. You remember the Indians game where we went and walk off, obviously. And LeCastro pinch ran for, I don't remember who it was. I think it might have been Torres. No, Torres hit the walk-off hit. So it could have been Joey Gallo, could have been somebody else. But LeCastro, his speed kills, stealing bases, and he's just so reliable as a pinch runner.
Yeah, and the best part about what's going on with Tim LeCastro is they're using him correctly. And everybody knows that watches his podcast is I'm a big proponent of you either play Stanton in the outfield a full fucking 9 innings or you don't. But when the Yankees are using Tim LeCastro the way he should be used, pinch running, stolen bases, getting guys on, you don't need Josh Donaldson stealing bases like he did against the Guardians. I mean, that was stupid. You don't need Rizzo doing that. Judge, you can do that if you want. But using the speed guys like Kiner Falefa, he has speed. And I understand people are not expecting, the Brett Gardner in him or this, that, and the other thing. And he's not going to be the most consistent hitter, but he will hit for average. And I know everybody was like, oh, well, he doesn't hit for this OPS or, on base percentage. He doesn't take walks, stuff like that. But once again, when they're being used in the small ball way, which once again contributed to that big winning streaks last year. It was all about Greg Allen. It was all about these guys that were coming up from the minor leagues, the small ball, the bunting, the stealing of bases.
Moving guys from first to third.
Right, moving guys over, making guys on the other team make mistakes. And everybody knows as well that I was not a big proponent of re-signing Tim LeCastro. I said, you know what? You got a guy in the minor leagues by the name of Estevan Florial. They may just treat him like Clint Frazier, and he may be a dead duck in a few years. He's got speed. He's got the power bat. He can hit for contact. Why not bring him up? But at the way they're using him right now, I'm not too mad about it. He's stealing the bases. He's pinch running for Stanton. He plays decent defense in the outfield. It's not all pro anything, it's not all-star defense. But I do like how Tim LeCastro has come along as a part of this Yankees small ball. I would say I don't know how to put it, but he's a part of the Yankees using small ball and moving these guys over. He may or may not have contributed in that seventh inning. I don't know for sure, but if he did, great. If he didn't, you know what? He didn't. But any final thoughts before we move on to the next subject?
Tim LeCastro's been fine in his role. He's not out, he's not doing too much. That's all we ask.
Agreed there. Luca, if you want to take us into the next subject.
So, Alex, although a minor subject, John Sterling's whiffed on a few calls this year. Do you think he should call it quits from the booth? He's on radio, by the way. So I remember, we were driving home from the market, and, there's a high fly ball in a deep left field going. I think Donald's hit the ball. Going back is whoever. Going back, Benintendi at the wall. She's gone. No, it's caught. It's like he's done this multiple times, and he actually did it yesterday. Well, I think it was in the first game against the Jays. He did the same exact thing. So he's had a few blunders this year. Do you think it's kind of worrying? I'm not saying anything about his mental state, but, some people, get past their prime. And do you think John Sterling should call it quits at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean,
he's had his good run.
No, I'm not going to disagree with you there. Vin Scully, and I am not a Dodgers fan, so I can't properly attest. Maybe they saw things in him, and I'm not saying comparing this to anything in mental states, but maybe they saw things in Vin Scully that says, okay, Vin, it's time to retire. Obviously, one of the better broadcasters of all time.
The greatest, probably. The greatest in baseball.
Yeah. And, he obviously stuck around since the 50s, Jackie Robinson era, stuff like that, whatever. John Sterling has had a good run. John Sterling has had a good run. And, people coming inside, oh, we thought that was out too. I mean, like, you know what? Let's stop being nice.
Well, Scully really retired on his own.
Yeah, I know. But let's stop being nice, be truthful. I know one of our friends suggested that once Sterling retires, the job should go to Ricky Ricardo. I mean, it would be interesting to see who actually fills that position. But he's getting old. Like I'm putting that in a very, very nice way. And I know usually I would just violently go out there. He's done a great service for the Yankees, has some memorable calls, but I think we're getting to a point where it's just getting really redundant, and it just doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. I mean, it's an instant second reaction, and people are not going to go, 7 days after one of his bluffs, or I should say one of his mistakes, and say, oh, well, John Sterling, I'm still mad about that, the missed call you had a week ago. Like, nobody's going to say that, but I think you will have more later in the season. And I think sometime he does need to hang it up. Obviously, he had a big streak prior to 2019 when he took off for some procedure or something like that. But he's had a nice run. Just overall, he needs to slowly start calling it quits. Maybe transition to, once again, Ricky Ricardo in some games. Take off. Have him
enjoy his grandkids.
Yeah. I mean, he's 83 years old?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's pretty much that. With that being said, any final topics that we have to cover?
I think we hit it out of the park, and I'm going to give my final thoughts. Really excited for what this Yankee team is doing. They're diversifying how they score their runs. The pitching is done well. I don't really have much to complain about, if anything, about this Yankee team. Let's hope they keep this hot streak up. Obviously, this winning streak is going to end soon, but you know what? Let's keep winning series. Let's keep going ahead. Push ourselves ahead. Make us look serious.
Yeah. And once again, I do have a couple of nitpicks. Oh, the starters should go a little bit more, this, that, and the other thing. But their upcoming schedule, They face Toronto tonight, and I'm going to speak tonight because it's 12:37, but also 7:07 May 4th. Then they have an off day on Thursday, and then Friday they're at the stadium against Texas. It's Cole starting against Otto. That might be Glenn Otto, actually. Yeah, Glenn Otto getting a start at Yankee Stadium. He's actually started out well for the Texas Rangers. Then it's Sevy. Then it's Montgomery. Then you have off the Monday. Toronto comes for a 2-game set. That's a little odd. I'm not going to lie to you there. Then Thursday, they go to Chicago for a 4-game set to start a road trip. And they haven't started out well. I think Twins lead that division. And then back to Balti. Hopefully they could sweep that series or at least just get 3 out of 4. Then Chicago for 3 games. Then they see Baltimore again. Then they finally make a trip to Tampa Bay, face LA, and that pretty much finishes out the month. So if you guys have not already, like, comment, subscribe to all the good stuff, turn on that notification bell, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Be sure to buy some merch, Twinbill merch, always on the NyynewsTV site.
Buy tickets
Also,
for June 25th.
June 25th, we are inching very, very close to that day. Please come out. We're going to be there, NYY News Gang. It's going to be a fun game to be at. We're going to be fun. Love to meet you guys. With that being said, we'll get out of here. Peace out. See you later. Stay cool. And let's go Yankees. Let's
go
keep
Yankees.
This thing going.
Before it hits the front page, NY